All right. So many of you may have seen the, what am I trying to say? The stuff that came out earlier that said Lenny Murphy was going to be doing this. And Lenny sends his regrets. He's having some health issues. He's not going to be able to be here, but he wanted me to say thank everybody for being here. So I will be talking about some of the information that we've seen from some work that's been done on what does the research of the future look like. If we think about where we've been in the past 5, 10, 15 years, research has really been often viewed as a service provider. You go in, you do a project, there's a beginning and end. It's very focused on that particular role, that particular problem, that particular task. And most of the work has been around simply reporting data. What we're seeing is the shift, and I'll show you some data behind this, but it's really now about being a business strategist, a marketing strategist, a social media strategist. Data synthesis is important. We're seeing things, transactional data come in, behavioral data, survey data, mobile data, all kinds of things. And all of these have to be more or less agnostic. If it's providing insights, it's valid. And the biggest piece is being able to communicate this in a way that's effective. In a Cambiar study a couple of years ago, there was work on what skills, what training is needed. Researchers were asked, what do you need to do to grow? You'll see the big ones here, the consulting skills, the storytelling, the influencing, all of those things that make the data move marketing outcomes. Those were where a lot of the skills were. What you won't see here is statisticians. What you won't see here is people that can write a survey. It's a different world that we're living in now. This is from the recent GRIT study. I love these next two slides because there's a lot of, I'll show you in a second. This, another way of looking at the same thing that we just talked about. People were asked, what are you hiring more for? What are you going to hire more? What are you going to hire less? Or about the same? If you look across the bottom, the ones that people are saying, I'm going to be hiring more, again, the strategist, the business strategist, the marketing strategist. The other thing that we're seeing is the need to hire people that can get their hands around this massive amount of data that we're dealing with today. Data integration, data technologist, things along those lines. Get your hands around the data, make it do something. This is from the supplier side. This is clients ask the same question. I'm not going to go through this. I'm just going to flip back and forth once or twice and just watch the bars. Up, that was supposed to be back. Suppliers, clients. Everybody is looking for the same thing. Suppliers, clients. This is where the need is, to move data into, to get a hold of the data and then move it into the things that the business can take advantage of. Apparently, I'm not very good with technology, and it's simply a green and red button. One more time. There we go. This is a word cloud off the GRIT piece, the GRIT work that was done. So what does the researcher of the future look like? What are the skills that are going to be needed? Psychologists, designers, developers, scientists, designers, programmers. This is talking about researchers. Again, survey design is not on here. Statisticians are not on here. We are in the middle of this massive change that we've been talking about all through this event. So with that, I'm going to move to the next phase. And we're going to ask our panelists to come up. We've got several of the young researchers that, that are going to be making these changes. We have Jenna Berger, we have Tim Kenyon, Casey Najati, and Sheridan Stavik. Thank you. This is the future. Before we get going, I want to take just a minute and set up a video that we have. It's about a 2.5-minute video. And it was a mobile ethnography project with Communispace, the ARF Young Research Pros, and Gen2 Advisors that really tries to get a handle on what is it going on today, what is the young researcher today. So with that, can we roll the video?
Communispace, in partnership with the ARF, set out to learn about today's young market researchers. We invited 30 young professionals in the industry to download an app and share an up-close and uncensored view of their days. Here's what they shared with us.
I'm a social media analyst.
I'm a marketing consultant.
I'm a research associate.
I am a community manager.
In the market research world, our titles aren't quite as descriptive as the jobs we learned about on career day back in 5th grade.
It can be hard to explain to our parents what it is that we do.
It's even hard to explain to our friends what we do.
But we like that.
It means our jobs didn't exist 15 years ago.
Or at least these roles didn't exist as they do today.
We might have known about market research, but not like this.
And we thrive on what's new.
So what is it that we do?
We ask questions all the time.
Whether of consumers, communities, or data.
We get to observe our changing world,
seeking to look at it from a new perspective.
We love the challenges of mastering and understanding new technologies and trends.
And we love this fast-paced world,
embracing the chance to discover what's new
and to lead the way for innovation.
Still, everyone wants to put a label on us.
Generation Y,
the trophy generation,
Generation Me,
the echo boomers,
millennial.
Older generations think we live our lives online, in a bubble.
That we think we know best.
Okay, maybe they're kind of onto something there.
We can't help it though.
Like when our boss asks us,
"What's Tumblr?"
Should I be on it?
Or when our superiors don't even show up to their own meetings.
And it's hard not to be obsessed with our smartphones.
When everyone is asking us to do more
in less time
with old technology.
But it's not always like that.
Sometimes our bosses help us put things in perspective.
Like in reminding us to kick back and celebrate the victories,
both big and small.
Inside the office and out.
Still, we're always keeping an eye out for those unanswered questions.
Seeking out challenges and wondering,
how can we do that, but better?
Because we're curious.
Community managers and social media analysts
might not yet be featured on Career Day.
But when they are,
you can be sure we'll be there to ask questions
of the next generation of young market researchers.
Good. So let's just get started here. Want to do some brief introductions. So introduce yourself, tell us what your role is, and let us know why this topic is important to you.
I'm Tim Kenyon. I work at GFK. I work on syndicated consumer trends. One of the reasons that I'm passionate about engaging young people in terms of market research, in part is because I have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I think there's a lot of stereotypes, and we saw them explained in that video about our generation that may or may not be true. And I think there's a real opportunity as we move into leadership roles to bridge the gap between our generation and the generations that came before us.
Great. Jenna?
Hi, I'm Jenna Berger. I'm an industry analyst in the automotive vertical at Google. And when I first took my job at Google, my grandpa was so excited and he was so proud of me. And he said that I would be really busy answering all of those questions in search. And it made me realize that research has taken on so many different forms today. And the role that I play is quite different than what my grandfather thinks I do. I don't correct him though. So it's important for us to sort of get on the same page and understand all those opportunities and the different roles that research takes today.
Hi everyone, my name's Casey Najati, and I work at Viacom Media Networks. I'm in the ad sales research department. And I think this topic is extremely fascinating, especially working at MTV, being in their core demo. Every day I'm learning new stuff about my friends, myself, my colleagues. So it's just fascinating.
And I'm Sheridan Stavak. I work at Bloomingdale's in customer insights. And I actually got interested in research in school, where I studied at Parsons School of Design. So I love the ability to bring design thinking into insights at Bloomingdale's. And I'm personally passionate about this panel because I think the industry is changing and we're some of the ones who are going to be there as it evolves. So how can we influence the future, because it's going to be our jobs.
So I'm going to ask each one of you to define the researcher of the future. In short form, maybe tweet form, but I'm not going to count the characters. So we'll start down here with you.
So I think it's someone flexible and adaptive who's willing to try new methodologies and challenge the status quo.
Mine would probably consist of a bunch of hashtags. It would be an entrepreneurial spirit, we'd be strategic, we'd be data as well as insight providers.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at tweet form. Sort of I, less than 3 data.
I would say something like curious, creative, storyteller, hashtag research can be fun.
Love the hashtag. So we'll start with you, Sheridan. What are the skill sets that are going to be needed as we move forward?
So I think, like Casey mentioned, an entrepreneurial spirit, we're kind of exploring new ground in research right now. So we really need to be the ones to take charge of that, bring new ideas, not just do what we did last year because we did it last year, and really try and initiate change in our organizations and with our clients, in my case internal, but in other people's cases externally.
Along that line, I think it's really important that we add more story and context to what we're providing. The times are changing, that's the new normal, so I think the business has to evolve with that as well.
So you said entrepreneurial spirit. How are you doing that in your job?
So Insights at Bloomingdale's is relatively new. So we're really building our own department, trying to justify why people should work with us, what we can do for them, and how we can move the business forward. And so it's about proving that working with us will get them what they want.
And has that worked?
Yes.
Good.
It's exciting.
Tim?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's important that, we understand that, people in our generation, they like to be tapped on the shoulder, they're interested in achievement. So following that idea of an entrepreneurial spirit, you obviously have your own managers, but also being your own manager, managing up, understanding that sometimes, you don't always have the resources that you need to work with, and working with the resources that you have.
Working with limited resources. Has anyone ever had to experience that?
Yeah, for me, the entrepreneurial spirit really translates to pace. So working at a really fast speed, wanting to turn things around really quickly, getting data real time to report to my clients, how their campaigns are doing, why we make a suggestion to optimize one way, or encourage them to try a new platform. And so sort of that flexibility is a big piece, but also being able to maintain a fast pace.
So we've heard the entrepreneurial spirit, we've heard the storytelling. what are some of the other skill sets that you think are going to be important or are important?
I think it's very important to be able to look at disparate data sources and be able to aggregate them into one story. We've heard so much about new methodologies over the course of the past few days, so how can we integrate those and tell one cohesive story?
And layering them on top of each other. For us in ad sales, we have ratings, but then we also are going to add a social component and show how our audience members are really engaged with the program, so it's packaging it in a nice, concise manner.
Yeah, and visualizations are key. You know, it's about making it easy to digest for people, so sort of being people-friendly researchers and driving insights. You know, at Google we have so much incredible data, and I subscribe to so many different tools, and it's about finding those really specific data points that can be easily understood by large groups.
So now we're starting to get a bigger picture of the data synthesis, the storytelling, entrepreneurial spirit, being able to communicate quickly and efficiently. So now we need to find these people and attract and retain them. What can organizations do to find these people, to find and attract and, and keep these people?
Yeah, I mean, you sort of have to start at the very, very top, understand what our generation, millennials, Gen Y, what do we really want to get out of work? I think increasingly, and I know we've talked about some research offline that says it's not about living to work, it's working to live. So I think work-life balance is really important to our generation. And I think it's also having access to technology that can make our job easier, that gives us more flexibility about when we work, how we can work. And then I also, that idea of tapping people on the shoulder. Forums like this are really great. I talked about the ARF Young Pros, which is another really great group that's focused on engaging people in our industry. But really, it's about keeping people engaged.
And so keeping people engaged, there's the tools to do it, the opportunity for growth. I heard that you said, what are some other opportunities to keep people engaged?
I think Jenna mentioned the quickness of the work that we do. I think that because we're working at such a fast pace, we have some sort of expectation that the company is going to make changes at a quicker pace as well. And so I think being able to work for a company that's taking what you're saying and making changes quickly, adapting to the changing pace of the world.
I agree with that. And it's like making meanings out of small tasks. Like you want to understand where your work is going and see that people are like reading your work and maybe praising you for it, sending some emails and stuff. And it's just.
So are there some corporate cultural changes that need to happen to help keep the engagement going?
I think along the same lines of what I was just saying, it's knowing where your work is going, also creating a very interactive workplace. Like Tim said before, like we kind of have this work-life blending. We want to be friends with our coworkers. We're going to be spending 40+ hours a week at this place, so it might as well be a fun environment and somewhere that you enjoy going.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that Google has done well, for me at least, is that research doesn't sit in one place, but rather it lives and breathes in so many different elements. So I feel like as a researcher, I've taken a role at a company where I can live in so many different groups. I have lateral moves. It's not just about moving up, but it's about staying challenged. And so for me, that could be working in ad sales research. It could be working in user experience research. It could be working on survey products. There's so many different opportunities as a researcher that's what's keeping me where I am.
So let's stay on that for just a second. And we were talking about the number of the growth opportunities, the way to kind of both manage up and manage down. How big a role does the variety of problems that you're asked to help solve, how big a role is that in your job happiness?
I think it's extremely important. Like, if you're just asked to do the same task every single day, it can be very mundane and boring. So I like the variety of maybe doing qualitative research one day and then quantitative research. And this department like touches so many different other areas of the company that there definitely is so much room to explore other types of research.
And Sheridan, you're kind of in a unique situation with this growing department, and you're actually in some ways able to shape what you want to do. What are you kind of focusing on? What are you trying to expand within Bloomingdale's? Where is your focus, and what's giving you that kind of cultural happiness?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really partnering with so many different people within the organization. Since we are small and we are growing, we have the opportunity to touch everything from our merchant teams who are buying merchandise, to our outlet, which is a new business for us, to bloomingdales.com. So I think being able to apply the learnings across businesses has both helped my personal development as well as the quality of our work.
So what about the idea of, we talked about work-life blending, I think is the word that you used. And it's, some people say balance. My work life and my personal life are just like this now. So that includes things like working late at night, but I may start my day late the next day, or telecommuting when I want to versus when I'm allowed to, those kinds of things.
Yeah, creating like a social environment. Like at MTV on my floor, we have Bagel Fridays, which like I look forward to on Monday, but it's honestly a great social way for everybody to like hang out Friday morning, talk about their weekend, and create more of a friendship with your coworkers versus just having to be a cog in the machine, doing your daily tasks. So it definitely break stuff up. And I mean, we'll go to work, maybe after work we'll go to dinner with our friends or something, so it's very seamless to our generation.
But you know, I feel like it's not just our generation that's facing that. So I think it's not just, you know, our age in the workplace, but it's, you know, sort of the era in which we work. I bet that most people in this room check their email before they go to sleep or first thing when they wake up in the morning. And so I feel like that's one of those stereotypes that maybe given this opportunity, I'd like to challenge, that it's not just millennials that are trying to strike this right balance, but that it's passionate professionals today.
I love that. And, I could apply that to me. I can't apply young professional to me, but I could, passionate professional I could do.
Fair enough, yeah.
Where do you feel like the skills that you bring are being underutilized? What are the opportunities for organizations to get the most out of what you can bring to the table?
I think we heard a lot this week about bringing the researcher to the table and being involved in conversations. I think the same is true for the young researcher in research discussions. We don't have the same history that our coworkers might. We lead a different lifestyle than a lot of our coworkers might. So we bring a different perspective, which can be helpful. We can bring a contrarian point of view that might end up making the end product a lot better.
And you know what David had said when he was announcing us was that we're digital natives, and I think that digital touches every single business today. And you know, when you have someone that spends, has 72% adoption of smartphones and changes their technology platform 27 times an hour, you know, why not utilize us as a focus group? And you know, when you're talking about a challenge of integrating digital into your business, or where does this fit, you know, we use it every day.
Yeah, and you know, to pick up on something that Sheridan said, I think that there is that idea of breaking through silos, wanting to work with different people, different teams, maybe not even in the research function, but understanding, you know, holistically, what does your organization, what does your company do? And having an opportunity to you know, think about research, but also think about some of the other objectives that your company might have.
So this applies, implies something more holistic about the business process, being involved in more steps along the way, a broader array of conversations. Do you make that happen informally if it doesn't happen formally?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I think it's happened organically for me as I've worked with people, struck up really good relationships, and then had the opportunity to sort of pull them inside and ask them some larger picture questions about, 18-month plans and lifetime goals and all of that stuff. I think that there's so many talks about mentors and mentees and having that be a formal process, which I think is definitely important formally, but I think my best mentor relationships are ones that sort of have happened organically. Someone takes an interest in something that I'm doing, or vice versa, and you just sort of pursue something that you both are mutually working on and working towards.
And getting someone outside your department, bringing another perspective, as Tim said, I think can really break grounds with new initiatives or programming or ideas or something along that lines, because if everybody in the same department with the same mindset is together, you're not really going to break through as much as if you have a holistic people from other sides of the business coming in.
Yeah, and I think the informal is really important. I mean, as someone that's trying to get ahead in your industry, or as a researcher, I mean, you have to take it upon yourself to learn and understand what's going on within your organization. But I also think it's important to have formal things that are in place, like a rotational program. I know at GFK they've done a lot around this idea of excellence and cultivating young researchers so that they stay engaged. And one of the ways they do that is by just kind of formally but informally introducing everybody to one another, so what this person's doing, what that person's doing, and when you do have a question that you can't answer, you can pick up the phone and you can call somebody.
So I was listening to a news story recently about Google, the layout, the physical space of Google, and that they have cafeteria tables that are long to make sure that people will sit together, that the perfect length of the lunch line is like 3 minutes. So not long enough that you can have an informal chat, but not so long that you're going to walk away. And I found this really fascinating.
Yeah.
So environmentally, the physical environment, are there things there that can promote all of these ideas that we've talked about, the informal get-togethers, get to know your coworkers, the entrepreneurial spirit? Are there anything in this area that comes to mind?
Yeah, I sort of over the idea of like an office, like the corner office with a door. I sit at a table with my coworkers and colleagues sitting really close to each other, and I think that fosters this sort of open dialogue and continual brainstorm on whatever we're working on, and you can hear what's going on a couple teams away from you, and so you're sort of learning vicariously. And I think that when you have walls that separate colleagues, those are sort of metaphorical as well as actual, and by having a communal space and sitting close together, it really fosters collaboration, or at least at Google it fosters a lot of collaboration.
So we're getting a little light on time, but I wanted to throw out one more question. If you were going to try to talk somebody into your field, what would you tell them to go, this is great? Or what would you warn them about to say, stay away from research because of these horrible things? So we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it fosters creativity, but at the same time, there's a structure behind it, because a lot of what we do is data driven, which I think is a real positive. Is this idea that we can provide insights that hopefully drive change within either your organization or another organization, and you can to sound a little bit cliche, quote unquote, make a difference. And you can do something that is sort of academic in nature, but it is also can be very creative as well.
I think it's really fascinating because research is essentially the closest you'll get to the consumer who will be using your product or buying your service. And I just think it's really cool to either like nitpick their brain if you're doing a focus group, or using the data to tell a story or sometimes create one. But I think as structured as it is, it's an extremely creative atmosphere, and it's learning your consumer.
And I think of research as a great springboard. I feel like data drives so many different business decisions today, or at least I want to work at companies where data drives significant business decisions today. And I feel like it's just this incredible opportunity to get a great foundation and then pivot in a number of different directions. And as you had showed, Greg, this idea of being a strategist or a consultant gives us this flexibility to be able to really leverage this incredible foundation of research and pivot in a number of different directions.
That's a great point. So as you look out beyond your career, over the next, let's say, 5 or 10 years out, do you see yourself within research, or do you see yourself moving on into a more consultant type role or a different role within the organization?
For me, I don't think my role exists yet. I think that there's so many constantly changing, and the pace is moving so quickly that what might exist today in 5 or 10 years wouldn't. And so for me to say, yes, I would like to still be working with data, I would like to be working with clients, I would like to be driving insights for my organization, but that might live in a totally different shape or form than it does now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with that. I think that I've seen in my work at Bloomingdale's, our role has transformed in the 3 years that I've been there. So what it's going to be in another 5, I have no idea.
Okay. All right, well, I want to thank our panelists, and I think that's it. Thank you.